Hello, today's lesson is going to be a demo on how to do a stack of boxes and books based off of a photo. Now this is going to look similar to when we did multiple 2-point perspective, but we can't make up anything this time. So we can't make up where the vanishing points are, we can't make up where the corners are. So this is going to be a little bit more specific and require us to look pretty hard to copy this. Now, again, we can put the wires of our sketchbooks up at the top. You probably still need a straight edge for things, even if we're not going to be drawing things to real vanishing points that we're going to draw in there. Just like when we found the horizon line and the vanishing points on our 2-point perspective photos from before, we're not going to be able to necessarily see these because they're not in the photos, so the vanishing points aren't going to be there, but we still need to accurately draw these. So this is what you'll end up with by the end of the demo. We're going to take some notes, as you can see, so make sure that you have all your supplies ready for you. So first thing is we're going to add the title up at the top. This is the demo of a stack photo with your name and initials and the date. So for this, I'm going to be starting with one of the boxes that's closest to us on this stack. So if you look, there are 7 boxes or books in this photo, and we want to figure out what's the closest to our eye line. So what's the closest to or on the horizon line? So if I make a couple of notes here, the first book is pointing upwards. I can see the bottom of it. That means it's above the horizon line. So I know that the horizon line can't be, it's not above this. So it's somewhere in the middle. Same with the last book for 7. I can see the top of it, which means it's below me. So somewhere in between book 1 or box 1 and book 7, there is a horizon line. Now you can tell if you can't see the top or the bottom of one of these objects, that's where the horizon line is. So if we start at the bottom, I see the top of this, I see the top of this, top, top, top. I don't see the top of this one. So this might be my best bet. I also don't see the bottom of it. So in all likelihood, this is where the horizon line is. So it's on the second object here. So we're going to draw a horizon line. And we're going to start with object number 2. So over here, off to my side, I'm going to take my ruler like I normally do and make a straight line to act as my horizon line. And I'm going to draw on top of that. So same as before, we always want to start with the corner of an object that's box shaped. So over here, our corner, if you notice, is really to the right side. So I'm going to have to draw based off of that. So on here, towards the, I'm sorry, that was the left side. So towards the left side, I'm going to draw my corner. Then after this, normally we draw in some vanishing points, and if you want to do that, you can. They're just going to be way off of the paper. So that doesn't really help me. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to figure out roughly where the sides are. So over on the left side, you can see here is not very far away from that corner that we drew. So I'm going to mark, this is the center. So it's just easy for me to talk about. So the center corner. And then the left side is really close to it. So I'm going to leave a little bit of space and I'm going to draw in my left side right there. Now the right side is very far away. I see so much of this face of the box. If you want to, we're going to revert back to how we did our proportions. So I'll take this line, and the width of it is about 1, 2.5 is how far away the right side of this is. So about 1, 2.5. That's where the right side is. So I have my center and my left and my right sides. I don't know where the corner of them is going to be yet, but I do have that. So I have my left, my right, and corner. Now, if we drew vanishing points, you'd know that from the center, it would go down, right? Like if we're above the horizon line, it's going to go down towards the horizon line. Over here, we're going to go up towards the horizon line, but we want to figure out at what angle. So next, we're going to go look at our box again, and we're going to figure out the corners of these blocks. So let's start over here. We have our corner right here, and the left corner is just a little bit shorter than it. So you can see that I go down a little bit, and there it is. So I'm going to draw on mine that my center is about here, and it goes a little bit downwards towards the left because I'm going down towards the horizon line. Then I can connect those together. Now let's look at the bottom corner. So I have my little dot right there. And then the bottom left corner is a little bit higher. Again, it's going towards that horizon line that I would have right there. So it's going to be a little bit higher than this, and then I can connect them and get that angle. So here's the bottom of my tissue box. About here, I'm going to say, is the angle, and then I just connect them. So now my left side is done. Now let's do the right side. Again, we're going to look at our tissue box, and the right side, it's so far away it's hard for me to tell, but if I hold my ruler up to that left corner, you can see that they're about even. So the left and the right ones are about even. So you're going to go from your left corner, keep it kind of straight. That's where your right corner is. So I'm going to connect the center dot to that right one. I'm just going to make sure that they're lined up. The left and the right are lined up. So again, I'm comparing different parts to each other just like we used to. So my left and my right dot are lined up, and then I connect them like that. Let's compare that bottom right. So again, if I take this and make a straight line, you can see that the bottom right corner is just a tiny bit lower than that bottom left corner. So it's definitely got to be higher than the center, but it's somewhere in the middle. So in the middle over there, I'm going to get that. Now, it might be difficult to do. So I'm going to say the right corner lines up with about that. I take my ruler to help me with that, and then connect those dots together. So observing is a lot more difficult because we're not just making up these lines, we're trying to copy all the angles that we have. So we're just double checking that's going up towards the horizon line, up towards the horizon line, down towards the horizon line, down towards the horizon line. So the corner is always going to be the largest, and then they're going to get smaller towards the sides because the sides are going away from you. They're smaller than the corner, which is the closest to you. Now that I have my first box, we can add some details to it. I don't really care about like that swirly pattern on it, but at this point, since we're not making generic objects, we want them to look more specific. So if you look real quickly, there's kind of a flap on the end over there, and then I like that kind of circle detail, so I'll be adding those to my drawing. So here's like this little flap, oops, right over here, kind of slanted. It's not going straight, but it's slanted a little bit. And then there's this little circle. So it's a little bigger than that, but so those details, again, are just going to add some more personality, just like when we did the ridges on the bottles or the labels on them. So we want to add some personality to these boxes as well. All right, so there was the first object. Now we're going to go into your second object. So if I were to erase some of those extra little notes that I made and clean that up, we're going to be shading this a little bit later. Right now we're just focused on these lines. So for this project, I want us to be focused more on the lines that occur. I will switch colors so that it's easier for us to see. So we're going to do box number 1 now, the one that's right above it. Same, we want to start with our corner. So let's figure out where that is. So our corner is from up here to about there. So you can see that it's floating a little bit upward, so it's a little bit higher. I can see some of the bottom of it, so I want to leave room for that. And then as far as like spacing, this is about the middle of your tissue box. So you can tell that it's between the middle and that other side of it. So I'm going to make sure to copy that. So I'm finding about the middle of my tissue box, about there, so a little bit over to the left. And I want to float it, so about here. I'm going to compare how tall this is to the tissue box. So this was my center of the tissue box. This box is just a little bit smaller, almost the same width as my tissue box. You might want to, your brain might say like, oh, that's much smaller, but it's actually not because it's really like close to you, facing you. That corner is. So make sure you get the height of it almost as big as the tissue box. So now I have my center. We're going to find the sides now. So left then right. And let's see if I can't get rid of some of those points that you see there. Okay. So again, let's observe. Let's figure out where the left is. Again, I'm not concerned where the corners are, but where the left side is. So if I make a line right here, you can see that the left side is happening somewhere in between, like the left side of the Kleenex box. It doesn't hang past it. It's a little bit shorter than that. So let's figure out where to draw that on our drawing in our sketchbooks. So here's that like edge of my tissue box, and we said it's a little bit more inwards than that, not much more, but about there. And then the right side is occurring here, so maybe towards like the last fourth of the book or of the Kleenex box. So I'm gonna draw that about there. Again, I'm not super concerned with where the corners are. I'm just figuring out this is the left side, this is the right side. And now I can figure out where the corners are. So again, if we had vanishing points, we take the center to the vanishing point. So these are going to angle kind of downwards. So double check. Over here we have the center, left, right. Over here, the left is just at a slight angle. You can take your pencil and figure out what that angle is. So it's very slight. So the left side's just a little bit lower down than the center. So I'll go a little bit lower down, and that up, yep, and then make that angle there. Then the bottom corner is floating just a little higher than my tissue box, and it is lower than that one. So float just a little bit above that tissue box, and then when we connect them, you'll see that it kind of hits that corner slightly, almost lines up with it. So we'll just double check that for accuracy. So there we go, that's our left side is done. Now our right side is interesting. Again, it's very low down. So if you compare the right side with the left side, I'm going to pretend I'm taking my ruler to measure this out. You see that this hits about here on my center line. It's way lower than the left or the center. So about here is where I think that lines up. So that's where I'm going to make my right side, is going across from there. And then I will connect those. Again, you can also take your pencil, try to line it up with there, and that's the angle that you need to draw. So there's the top of the right. Now the bottom of it gets cut off because it's blocked off by that tissue box that we drew. But I can literally see that the top box, number 1, is going to hit my tissue box right there, like almost directly in the center of the tissue box. So I'm going to do that and then connect them together. So I have about the center of my tissue box is about here, and I will draw a line like that. And clean that up. Now we have a left side and a right side. This is above the horizon line, so I should see the bottom of it. I see a little bit of the bottom right here, which is good, but I do have this floating corner over here, which I need to address. So there can't be corners that are floating. That's not really how boxes work. So I need to finish out the bottom of it. I'm going to go over here again, and you see that the tiniest little sliver, if I make these lines thinner, it'll be easier to see. The tiniest little sliver just goes back into the box. Not quite at that corner over there, but really close to it. So really close in my drawing, I'm going to make that tiny dot there and close that out. So now I have the entirety of the bottom of that figured out. And when we shade it, it'll look a little bit more believable. Okay, so box number 1 is done now. And I'm just cleaning it up. Let's add a tiny bit of detail in here. So I see that label is very prominent and it's kind of tilted. So I'm going to also add this tilted round sticker label right there. If I hide my lines, you can see there's kind of a hole up at the top where the flaps meet. So I can add that as well to make that look more interesting and more accurate. So I have box 1 and box 2 done. We have one above the horizon line, one on it, and let's just get that book that's below, so that third object there. And I will clean up and change colors so that's easier to see. Hopefully you're getting the hang of this. It's really that you use all the other objects like before when we were making our bottles to figure out the height, the width, the proportions, the angles now of the other objects. So this one I'm going to change and make blue. Easy to see. And let's go. First thing I need to do is the center line. So let's find the corner. The corner of this yearbook, if we get really close, is here. So all the way at the end of our tissue box, this is the end line of our tissue box, so a little bit more inwards. And it is floating just a tiny bit, so leave a little bit of space for us to see the top. You can see that this one's going to be a much shorter line than the other ones. So compared to my tissue box, it might be less than half of it is how wide that corner is going to be. So I'm going to take less than half of my tissue box and I'm going to draw that corner. So that's going to be that center for me. Now we're going to do the left and the right side. Again, we're going to start towards the left. Left side you can see is hanging way past the tissue box, so give it a lot of space. You can see that it kind of touches the corner of the tissue box right there. So that'll help us a little bit later, but we want to give some space, that much space, between the tissue box and this book that we have. So get to the end of your tissue box, leave like a good amount of space here. And this is where we'll draw the end of that book. So leave some space, and there you go. Not a huge amount. That's going to be our right side. Left side is still like hanging off the edge of the tissue box, but it's much shorter. So I'm going to get a much shorter distance away. So maybe about that much. I'll exaggerate a little bit. But there you go. Whoops. Silly me. That's our left side. So there's our left and there's our right. Time to get the angles of this now. So I said that the tissue box touches the spine of this yearbook about there. So I'm going to make a line there. Anything that touches will make it a lot easier for you. So I'm going to draw a line that makes sure I hit that corner and then all the way up there. If I didn't go high enough, then I will make it higher. But there you go. We'll double check. It's going up towards the horizon line, which is perfect. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. Now I have my top left corner, my bottom left corner. Again, line up my ruler. See that it's just like the slightest bit higher than the center, right? So it's just slightly higher than that, but really not by much. So I'm going to take my center, I'm going to go slightly higher and then go all the way across. And there you go. So remember that the center has to be the biggest. Here it's the biggest line, and then on the sides it gets smaller. So there's no way for the left side to be like this, where this is the smallest and this is the largest. If you're dealing with boxes, that's not how that's going to work. So make sure that this is a little bit smaller than the center. So the sides always have to be smaller because they're going away from you. Okay, right side now. Right side has a very dramatic angle. You can see that it's very dramatically going upwards. And that's why it looks so short. So on this one, you can see the corner is slightly higher than the tissue box. So go slightly higher than the tissue box. So here's my tissue box, slightly higher than it. It's about there. Doesn't touch it. There you go. And that's the top right. Bottom right, over here to over here. Again, you can take your pencil and try to figure it out. Or you can use your ruler to line it up. Line it up, you'll see it's slightly lower than kind of, if I take like the middle, I think the right corner is about there. And then I connect them. So my sides for this are essentially done. This is below the horizon line, so I need to see the top portion. So there's these floating lines that don't have the top of it yet. So all the way on the left, let's make the top so you can see that corner over here. This corner goes into where my tissue box is, so that makes like a nice little triangle top for us. So right where the edge of my tissue box is, I can connect those lines. Again, it's going to go up towards the horizon line. On the right side, I get to my little yearbook, get rid of these lines that are confusing me. And this is just slightly above. It's almost like straight looking. So slightly above there, and then connect that. Whew! Last time we learned how to make a book look more realistic, so we're going to do that whole bracket thing because this is a hardcover book. So I'm going to round off that center a little bit, very slightly, round it off. I'm going to make sure my pages go on the inside and leave a little thickness for the top and bottom of that hardcover. Again, when I shade it, it'll look a little bit better. Now I can deal with sketching out some details. So here you say it says yearbook. I'm not super concerned about the lettering right now, but there are these cool kind of line details. So I'll simplify. You see the lines are curved slightly. So I will add some of those just to make this look a little bit more unique. So I have this kind of horseshoe shape, and then I don't know, I'll just put 2 lines under it. So I'm simplifying like that. There's kind of 2 more here and there. The other side does the opposite, so there's that horseshoe. I'm just sketching these for now. I can make them look nicer later. Line, line, so many lines. Line, line. Okay. That kind of looks like a book to me. And then when I finish this out, I will add in my pages right there. So today I'm not super concerned about the shading. What I really want to do is like clean up so that the lines look really nice. So I will take this, I'll lighten up my sketch, and then I want some nice super clean lines now. So I'm gonna go in now that my sketch is nice and light. Again, this is just in the sketchbook, so you just take your regular pencil to do this. And I'm going to go over my lines one more time, add in all of those details that I see. If there's any shading that I want to do, then I can, but I'm not super concerned with that at the moment. Gonna get over my label again. I can add some more details if I want to, so I see like this cool line there and this barcode. I can think about drawing that if I want to while I'm waiting for you guys. This isn't a detail you have to add. And I want to go over that corner again. All right, tissue box. Using my ruler again to make that nice and straight. If you see that there's any like kind of rounder corners, then you can definitely make the corners a little bit rounder so they look more natural. Sometimes when books get more beaten up, they tend to have rounder corners than they do really sharp ones. Same with like cardboard boxes. They get beat up a little bit. Tend to get a little wobblier looking on the edges. See, there's kind of an area right there that can be thicker. I can fill that top part in. And then my yearbook. So my yearbook, I'm gonna go over my lines. Don't forget that bracket for that part. I'm gonna get nice and close there so you can see what that looks like. Again, there's those pages that are a little bit more inwards. This time I don't really see the binding because of the angle that we're at, but I can add some like extra lines and ridges that I'd see, and those details on the spine, again, just to give them some more personality. And let me add some pages in there that go up towards the horizon line, just kind of go in between our lines that we made really lightly. Okay, So now you have a beautiful outlined book stack, or box stack, I suppose. On this page, if you have room like towards the top somewhere, then you can write these directions, but if not, then you're going to do this on a new page. So take a new page, or if you have room at the top, you can do this. So there are essentially 7 steps to how we did that. And this time this is kind of instructional and in order. So first thing that we did was we identified the horizon line. So we picked where is the horizon line. Again, you're looking for an object where you can't see the top or the bottom of it. That's what's on the horizon line. If you see the top of all the books, that means the horizon line's above them all. So you always want to start with that one. So start with the object that's on or closest to the horizon line. For us, that was the object number 2. Next, you're going to make a vertical line for the center, for the corner. After that, we're not like finding the vanishing points. We really just want to find the proportions of the sides. So figure out how far to make the sides. You really only have to do that the first time, because after that, everything is based off of that first box you make. Then you'll add the corners of it. So figure out how tall to make the corners and what those angles are. You're going to connect those together. So the lines should point towards the horizon line. You're always going to make those lines from the center go towards the horizon line. The floating corners, if you have any, are going to become the top and the bottom, so double check. If it's above the horizon line, you should see the bottom of it probably. If it's below the horizon line, you should see the top of it, unless it gets completely blocked by something else. And then finally, you're going to detail, clean up, and shade. And so at the end, ideally you can have something that looks more like, get all this together, like that. So with shading, this will look a little bit more professional, a little bit nicer. Now, your assignment for today is we did box 1, 2, and 3, and for your major project, I'm going to ask you to do 3, but I want to see how well you're able to look at this. So you are going to add the 4th object now. So right over here, you're going to add that last book. So you don't have to worry about the bottom 3, so 5, 6, 7 doesn't matter. If you want to practice, then you can. But I do want you to notice that with object 5 and with object 6, we don't see a corner, right? We see like a whole side is facing us. And when a whole side is facing us, I want you to remember that that's in 1-point perspective, so it just gets kind of smaller like that. But you are dealing with object number 4. So you are going to find the corner of it, find where the sides of it are, and then you're going to finish that out. So this was like my messy thing. Same with the top. So please add object number 4 in your demo after you've taken a picture and uploaded it to your feedback slides.